Hello, am I audible? Hello.
Yes.
Um, a very warm good morning to everyone. I am Meher, Vice Chair of IEEE AGBCBH. So today I welcome you all to the fifth and last talk of this conclave conducted as part of the 15th anniversary of our IEEE student branch GC Barton Hill. Today we have with us Mr. Amardev Venugopal, our alumni who graduated in Electronics and Communication during 2011. He was the chairman of our IEEE GCBHSP during the year 2010. Currently, he is working as a senior engineering manager at Tata Center for Technology and Design at IIT Bombay. He currently leads a health tech research group at IITB that aims to develop affordable point-of-use diagnostic solutions for deployment of primary and secondary care conduct. He has worked on several multidisciplinary projects in the healthcare domain and is an expert technology and hardware specialist with experience in taking projects from a proof of concept phase to mass manufacturable products. His current focus is on developing solutions in the domain of cervical cancer screening, telepathology, disaster management systems, etc. He is a technology consultant for companies in product development and actively mentors health tech and IoT startups. He has been the part of many projects like light side imaging, portable digital storage oscilloscope, wound healing assessment device, gesture-based home automation, pediatric peripheral vision analyzer, and a lot more. It's a pleasure to have you with us, sir. Extending your very hearty welcome from the side of IEEE BCBHSC. Over to you, sir.
Um, hi, Meher. Thanks for such a lovely intro. I hope I'm audible to everyone. Am I clear?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir,
Okay.
you're
Cool. Let me just share my slides, and then maybe we can get started. Hold on. Yeah. Are the slides visible? Full screen?
Yes, it is visible.
Yes, sir.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, guys. Thanks, Meher, for such a lovely intro. Yeah. First of all, a couple of ground rules. So if there, because I won't be able to see the chat screen or whatnot, so I'll be in the presentation. I would probably be seeing only the front screen. So if there is any issues with the audio, video, or if it gets hung or any of that sort, do let me know, because only feedback I get from you guys is via audio as of now. Okay, so yeah, thanks a lot for being here. First of all, thanks IEEE Student Branch at Barton Hill for inviting me. So when these guys reached out, I mean, like IEEE Student Branch and GCB, like it brings back so many good memories for me, in the sense that I started my engineering studies there. A lot of good memories there, and like it feels great to be back and talking with all of you to share my experience with on how things have panned out over the last few years. So when like Abhijit and Aditya had reached out and said, "Hey, can you come and give a talk on something like this?" So my first question to these guys were like, "Okay, who's the audience, right?" So they said that okay, it's really mostly students, but I see quite a lot of senior management staff, also friends, and quite a lot of you have also joined in. So thanks for that. So I don't want to do something very technical or very technically deep, because of the fact that okay, if you want to go into some deep domain technical talks, you can go ahead and visit my website. There will be a few talks which will be put up there, which you can go through. So I wanted to talk about something which I think every engineer should know, and this is something which I personally think every engineer should know. If when I was in my studies, if somebody had told me this would have made life so much simpler for me, right? So this is something which is very close to my heart on how to be a good engineer. So for me, engineering is my life, and that is who I am and what I am as of now, and who I would like to be in the future. So for me, this core subject is when state of engineering is kind of really bad in the state of, like, I would say in the entire country basically. Even you don't even have to look at tier 3 or tier 2. I've like had first-hand experience in tier 1 colleges, the engineering and the education and the students which is coming out, which is not really what the industry wants. So in this talk, what I want to tell you guys is saying a few things which I learned over my life, saying, okay, these are the things which I kind of presume that, okay, this is what makes a good engineer. So as a research for this talk, I had reached out to quite a lot of engineering friends, colleagues, work colleagues, senior thought leaders in my domain to ask them what they think is great to be an engineer, right? So they had sent in few lists. So I was able to collate a list of around top 10 things. This is my list, and it is in no way an exhaustive list. There are multiple other elements which is involved, but this is where you can say that you can like start off your engineering career based on these things. See, what I promise you through this entire journey of this like 1 hour or so is that I promise you that at the end of this 1 hour, I would, if you are going to implement these, whatever is the things which I'm saying, you would start off in the journey to be a great engineer. That is for sure. That I can assure you, if you put in a daily effort to be able to do that. That is something which I can promise you, because I have been seeing people who are quite a lot of engineers from various backgrounds to be able to come up with these things. Okay, so with that in mind, let me start off saying who is an engineer. Okay, so let's clear the plate and say, okay, who is basically an engineer? An engineer, by the word engineer, it comes from a Latin name called engineer, I believe, which kind of means to build or to create. Okay, so that is the word definition of an engineer. So if you like Google on for engineer, you will find a lot of definitions, like a lot of complex definitions. I kind of like none of them because it's kind of complex. For me, an engineer is this: a person who builds keeping in mind the real world constraints in mind. Okay, so this simple sentence encompasses everything what I call as an engineer. See, this consists of two sections. So one is person who builds, and second is constraints. So let's take it like separately. And for me, an engineer is somebody who actually builds systems on ground, who is practical and who does not go on to the theoretical realm of things. I understand that you need to go into the theoretical realm of things to understand and study, but I don't call somebody who works purely in the theoretical domain to be a engineer. Okay, so if you want to be an engineer, you need to be actually be able to build systems and to be able to realize things in practical life. Okay, so this is the actual difference between what a scientist is and what an engineer is, because there is a lot of debate on saying, hey, is a scientist an engineer? Scientist is an engineer if he can actually build things in place. So the building part is the key and the important element here over here. Second part, real world constraints. See, now if somebody is given like n number of like billions of dollars and no constraints, they can go ahead and build anything. But that is, I would not call it as a true engineer, because an engineer works within his limits. See, when you start putting constraints onto something, so let's say you are take the example of a phone. Okay, now let's say you are trying to develop a new phone. Okay, now you are constraining yourself, saying, okay, hey, the phone should not cost more than X. It should not be thicker than this. It should have a specific dimensions. When you start putting these real world constraints, that is what gives you interesting problems. So an engineer is somebody who looks at something of that order, looks at a problem and says, okay, what is the constraint? So when clients reach out to me and I say, hey, can you build me X, Y, Z? So first question I kind of ask them is, say, what are the constraints over here? Okay, why is it that you're not able to get this done somewhere else? Or what are the real world issues which you're trying to solve based on this? Based on this, now an engineer's job is to say, hey, based on these parameters, I will find out from the real world, saying, okay, these are the constraints, my problems, definitions I will be dealing with from this, and then I'll be trying to solve a problem. An engineer always builds keeping things in all these real world constraints in mind. Now, what makes them great? Okay, so an engineer, for me, I kind of categorize into three categories. So one is a namesake engineer. By a namesake engineer, I mean that an engineer who has gone through the BTech degrees and who has got a certificate saying that he's an engineer. Okay. Second is, I would categorize them in a decent category wherein he or she was able to execute tasks, and he is able to do regular amount of engineering activity. He is able to build some amount of activities. That is the second category. The great category comes from, in the industry you call them like 10x employees and whatnot. They kind of do what 10 employees can do. This is not physically true in the sense that these people do not do exactly what 10 people do. They find out enough ways by which they are able to get the productivity of 10 people rolled into one. So that is what makes them great. These are people who can innovate, who can think on the ground, and who can build innovative systems. That is what is kind of making them great. Okay, so over the next 10 slides, what I want to explain is how do you get on the path of becoming great. Okay, so how do you start off, and what are the things you need to learn to be able to say, okay, hey, I'm on the path to being a great engineer. Okay, so a caveat up front, so because there are like a lot of students from a lot of different backgrounds, so I've tried to generalize it to quite a bit of extent. So there will be quite a few obvious things which you think, okay, hey, why is he talking about this? Because I want to say the obvious things also. Is why? Because I want to drive home the point. Because if things are too obvious, people will just tend to forget. Okay, there will be few obvious points which is there. So if you know that, okay, just brush it off and say, okay, hey, some other people might not know about that. Okay, that's right. It's kind of like a okay. With that, let's start. I think there was a lot of static. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So let's start. First thing which you should do to be on a path is to learn the trade. Okay. This is again very obvious, but it is very essential. Nobody will take you seriously unless you know what is it that you're talking about. Okay, it could be any domain. And when I say learn the trade, I mean really learn. It is not just learning for the sake of passing exams or doing a project or something of that nature. What I'm trying to tell you is, do you know something really well such that you can, let's say, potentially teach a 5-year-old kid that same concept? So unless you get to that level to say, okay, it could be any domain, any subject, anything. Unless you can say, can you teach this 5-year-old kid, can you simplify the concept and don't use any jargons of any sort? Can you teach a 5-year-old kid this concept, the same concept which you learned? So unless you are able to do that, you actually do not have, you have not learned anything. It is basically based on that. Okay, so you need to be able to learn. So now people come to me and say, okay, hey, how do I go about doing that? So you start off. Let me show you something. Okay, so I want you guys to be something of this. So I call it the T-shaped thing, wherein you be an expert in your domain. Okay, so if you are seeing the cursor, you see the T has the elongated end. So that is where your expertise lies. So it could be any domain. And there will be a flat line section which could be multiple domains in various spectrums. Okay, so to give you an example, so this kind of concept is not developed by me. It is called as a generalized specialist. So what you actually need to do is you need to specialize in one domain. It could be any domain, but in one domain you need to be really, really good. So to take my example, I'm good in, let's say, electronics, product development, product design, and stuff like that. Okay, so I am good in my T section downwards is that. Okay, what are my flat line sections? Also, let's say I like coding. Let's say I like to do product design. I like to dabble with some sort of design elements. Or let's say I like to read about healthcare related things. So these are things which are not essentially related to your domain. So these are totally orthogonal. It could be like a hobby even. It could be like you might want to say, okay, hey, I like playing a guitar. So all of these will fall in your T section. So why it is important for you to have knowledge in multiple domains is because you will be able to make connections. So let's say you're trying to solve a problem in your expertise domain. So if you're just an expert in, you are like having a very narrow vision and you are saying, okay, I'll be able to only see things in my domain, you will not be able to make connections in different structures. So you will be able to, so if you are in the T domain, you will be able to draw parallels from saying, hey, let's say I know mechanical engineering. So let's say I'm doing a product development. I'll say, okay, so if I do this, the mechanical engineering elements start getting messed up. Okay, so I'll be able to draw parallels from multiple other domains. So this will really open up your mind to like multiple amounts of thinking. So when gone are those days wherein you are just becoming an expert in one domain, you should not be doing that. You are like most of you in the talk is in the early stage of your engineering life. So you should not be an expert only in one domain. See, start with expertise. I'm not saying go learn everything else on planet Earth. No. Start with one domain and be best in that. So that could be one element. So it could, let's say you are a mechanical engineer, you can say, okay, my core area will be mechanical engineering, but it need not be. I have had guys in my team, my colleagues, my clients who, let's say, have learned a particular skill, have their masters in one particular domain, but they are really good in something else. So that's kind of because of the state of affairs of engineering in India, because you don't choose your engineering stream, your rank determines it. So whatever is the thing you get, that's basically what you go with eventually, right? So when you are in this domain, it could be any domain. So you could be a CS guy doing mechanical engineering. So you can be an expert in any domain as long as you have the domain knowledge for it. Now, based on once you have that developed that expertise, broaden it out. So this will help you widen your horizon. And these kind of people are in very high demand these days, very high. Meaning, if you can think through different domains to be able to execute projects, this is a very important skill to kind of have. Second thing, master your tools. See, by tools, I mean, so let's take an example for an electronics engineer. So it could be you learning on how to do soldering, or let's say you learning how to do a PCB design on software. If you are a mechanical engineer, you learn to, let's say, use SolidWorks or any other CAD software which is out there. Okay, so I mean master it. So this is not you going into YouTube and watching a tutorial of some tool or something and saying, okay, hey, I have mastered the tool. That's not what I mean by that. By this, what I mean is you need to be able to put in like 300 to 400 worth of hours. So which is close to like 2 months sort of a time frame to be able to master a single tool. See, why I tell you to do that is because this tool and whatever is the tool, and that this is going to be a major tool when you're in your domain. Whatever is your domain, it could be MATLAB, it could be any, whatever is the major tool set in your domain, learn that. See, why you should do this is because once you master that, this tool stops becoming a hindrance to you. So let's say you are assigned some project, okay? Now you want to do XYZ. So you will only be thinking about the project, not on how you want to execute, because you already know the tool. You say, okay, hey, given whatever is the problem, I will be able to master it. It becomes like kind of like a back of your hand sort of a thing. You will be able to say, hey, given whatever the problem, I will be able to solve it through this. So let's say if you're a CS guy and let's say you learn Python end to end, and you say, okay, hey, your problem you are given as saying, okay, hey, go ahead and scrape the entire internet. And say, okay, I'll go and write a Python script to be able to do that. So now you should be starting to think of the problem, not necessarily being hindered or you will be fearful of the tool. No. So your entire fear of the tool needs to go away. And I mean serious dedicated amount of work. And you need, I mean, it could be any one tool. I'm not saying learn all the tools. It is useful to kind of know most of the tools which are out there, but master one wherein you can say, okay, given any problem in this tool, I know the ins and outs, I know the pros, what is possible, what is not possible, what can I do with something of this order. Okay, that is how you get to doing mastering of your tools. Third thing on the list, keep up with the latest tech. See, in this day and age, every day there is new technologies, new things. There is a lot of clutter which is happening, right? So it is kind of hard to keeping up with all the technologies out there. So what I would kind of suggest to you guys is, in a weekly basis, maybe spend a couple of hours on a weekly basis, maybe on the weekends or sometime when you're free, okay, to learn about new things. To say, okay, these are the texts which I want to take up, and these are the things which I want to. So whatever is a specific, so this kind of becomes in your expertise domain. You say, okay, so I'm a mechanical engineer. I want to know what is the latest and the greatest in thermodynamics and whatnot. So you start off by doing three things. Okay, so one is I call it research papers, white papers, and patents. So if you are able to master these three things, you will be up to date with whatever is happening in the tech industry. So research papers, I wouldn't go much in detail on this because most of you would know. And if you are into engineering, you would need to know, okay, who is publishing what and what are the latest trends in technology which is happening. And it kind of takes time. Even IEEE has a full section of whatever is your domain. Subscribe to that and you will get your latest news from there, right? So the research papers, it's kind of hard to read upfront unless you get a hang of it. So start by just reading the abstract, and then you will find that, okay, there are words which I do not know. Go ahead, Google them. Then you start to, after you have done reading with like 20 odd papers, you will kind of know what is happening in the industry. But so second and third things are the things which I don't find students or people from the tech industry do quite a lot is reading white papers. Okay, white paper, so for people who do not know, is like a comprehensive document which most of the tech companies do release on probably on a monthly basis on whatever is the coolest thing which is happening on their domain. Okay, it could be some scientific breakthrough or whatever is the company's product line in. And what a white paper defines is saying, okay, what is the trajectory of growth for that product, or what is the future like for that technology. So when you read a white paper, and it is written for the general public, it is not very hard to understand at all. So now you keep track of, okay, what is happening, what is potentially this large tech company, this is what the company is thinking about for the future. And this is what are the things which I need to keep in mind, keeping myself at pace with the tech. Okay, so that is one key element. So reading white paper, and it's very easy. It is like written in plain layman language because it is meant for general public. As an engineer, you should be able to get good insight onto that. So one third thing which I never see students do, but it is a knowledge, like it's a knowledge book, is reading papers. So is reading patents. So patents are the bleeding edge of tech which is out there. Okay, so if you see whatever is coming out, if you go and look at in the patents document, you will find that, okay, this is what is bleeding edge in that technology. This is where the Apples, the Googles, and all those guys publish their results. So it takes quite a bit of understanding to navigate a patent, but because it's mostly legal jargon and whatnot, so it kind of takes some time. But kind of a trick which you can kind of use is go and read the first claims, and you say, okay, what this patent is for, and go look at the images. All the patents contain images. So you will be able to say, okay, whatever is your domain, you will be able to say, okay, hey, let's say Apple has launched some new design. Okay, how did they do that? So if you go through the images, you don't need to go through the entire legal jargon. You will be able to just see from the images, like, oh, this is what they have done to mitigate this, X, Y, Z. So this helps you keep up with saying, well, what is the latest and the greatest which is out there. Okay, so an engineer will be obsolete if he or she does not keep up with the latest tech. And see, all of these things would not happen unless you learn to love your domain. See, when I say master your tools, right? So it consists of like 300 to 500 odd hours of time you need to be able to spend in your domain. So this becomes like a litmus test for you guys, saying, okay, is this really the right field for me? So unless you are I'm not saying competent, consistently thinking, saying, okay, put in this time and effort to be able to do this, you will never do that. So this 300 to 500 hours, which I say, in that domain, you need to be able to love the domain. So unless you do that, whatever it is that you are doing next is never going to make sense. And you will like resent doing that, like going ahead. Okay, so learn to love your domain. It again, the point I made earlier, right? In engineering, you don't get to choose, and you get pushed into one domain. Learn to, it is always, some people do not like it. That is totally okay. You can always switch a domain. That is also okay, because you are in your early stage of you are like barely in your 20s, right? you have like average lifespan these days is like 80 years. So you have more than 60 years to achieve whatever it is that you want to do in life. So there is enough time. So if you want to switch, do your switch. But learn to love your domain. Whatever is the domain you do, you need to be able to learn to love that. Okay, second thing, getting hands-on. This is important, and I can't stress this enough. When I go meet with people, I can't, if an engineer cannot get hands-on and dirty and build stuff, I don't want to talk with him in that. Okay, so you need to be able to get hands-on. See, building things always matters for an engineer, and that is where the skill set is. See, it doesn't matter what you build. You can build things which are small. Start very small. See, anybody. Okay, so to give you an example, this was like, I think back probably like even this was in my Barton Hill days, like engineering. I think it was like 2008ish sort of a range. So yeah, this was after my first year. So when I'll tell you how I started off, in the sense that, okay, so I went into an Arduino sort of a course. So for people who do not know what an Arduino is, it's like a prototyping electronic environment sort of a thing. This was like very early stage, and this was when it was launched. Now every kid in like 5th standard or 6th standard would be able to get going with an Arduino and whatnot. This was like very early stage when it got introduced in India and whatnot. So when after my first year of engineering, when I went to this workshop, so I saw, okay, I wrote some sort of like rudimentary code, and I was able to see an LED blink. Okay, so that for me was the triggering point. For me, when I saw that LED blink, and which this was something which I built with my hands, say, okay, I take an LED. This is like very basic. It is like Hello World for the CS guys, right? So when I did that, so something clicked on my mind, saying, okay, hey, this is something which I actually built, even though this is absolutely small, and this is not something any first year engineering student should be doing. But people, I mean, this is very small, but something clicked on my mind saying, hey, this is something interesting. Let me do X, Y, Z. So that's when that kicked off a whole series of events to help me reach where I am today. So always start small. See, when you start small, the projects will be small, and people will probably be laughing at you. See, let them, and people have no other business in life, so they will laugh at whatever it is that you are doing. So let people laugh at whatever it is that doing. Don't even bother what is it that they are looking at. Start small. So start with whatever is the fundamental basics. Go through your steps. Then eventually you will get enough things and enough experience to be able to say something when people will say, wow, you built something great. Okay, so till that happens, do your due diligence, build things small. So this physically means you need to be able to physically build things. And when I say build things, I don't mean just the physical elements, right? So so for electronics or a mechanical engineer, it is really easy to build something from physical, right? For a CS guy, building things means, let's say, creating a software, or creating an AI model. It could be anything. For a civil, it could be. So don't say that you don't have enough things to build. There are enough things for you to be able to. For even, let's say, for civil guys, if you guys don't have anything to build, go buy a packet of concrete and mix it in various proportions and see what the settling time is. Okay, there are n number of things which you can do in this domain. So start small, get your hands dirty, and start doing it. Now, why I tell you to do that is, practice what you learn, in the sense that, see, unless whatever it is that you're learning, and learning cycle is never complete till you actually see that functional in front of you. So now when that happens, you put your theory and practice together, and you have a complete cycle. You will be able to say, hey, this is something which I have actually built. When you actually see a physical thing built, that feels like your baby. Okay, this is something which I've built, and it doesn't matter what somebody else thinks about it. It actually means, okay, this is something that is great. Okay, that is what I'm trying to say. Build, get hands-on. And so one resistance which when I talk about this, people say is, okay, hey, I don't have the funds to buy equipment or do something. So if you want to physically build things, most of you would be in cities. Go to your nearest fab lab, or there will be a fabrication lab or a laboratory. Go volunteer there over the weekend. Learn the tools from there. they would not charge you for. You say, okay, hey, I'll help manage the labs for you, help in that process, let me build something also. Nobody is going to charge you. There are enough ecosystem currently is getting built up in such a way that you are focusing on building things. Okay, so don't give the excuse that I don't have the access to this equipment XYZ. No, and it is currently very cheap for you to get started. Even if you don't have that starting capital, go do the volunteering work for you to even get started. Okay, this is something which I have to stress upon. Always have a side project which you love. Okay, this is important because see, whenever I try to hire somebody new, I always try to see, okay, what are the other things which this guy or girl has done apart from their regular activity. So it could be your regular activity, it could be your acad, it could be your job. So what are the other things this person is interested in doing apart from their regular work hour allotted, right? So that shows me how interesting this person is. How is it that they are spending their free time? So that is a key element for me for hiring somebody of any good caliber. So to give you an example, I have a side project. I had like tons of side projects when I was in college and whatnot. So this side project, you do not know when that is going to come back and help you. Okay, so to give you an example, this side project, a few side projects which I used to do, one of them went on to become $1 million startup and whatnot. But another one which when I helped me get like master's program in IIT Bombay. So to give you my story in the sense of, after I graduated from Bhattalan, I thought of giving GATE. Okay, I screwed up the exam in the sense that I didn't get that great a rank to merit an IIT.
Sir, your voice breaking in between.
Okay, is it better? Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Now it's fine.
Yeah, so what basically happened there was, so I graduated. I mean, I did my GATE exam. Rank wasn't that great to get into IIT. So IIT Bombay at that time had a program called as MTech RA program. So it's like research assistantship, wherein you finish your MTech in 3 years, wherein you have a lot of lab works and whatnot. You will be assisting people to, I mean, students to do their coursework. I mean, to do their lab work and whatnot. Okay, so I applied for that. So what basically happened was, even in the test, what happened?
Sir, it's breaking again.
Okay.
I think it's your problem.
We are getting good.
It's okay? Yes, no? Guys, feedback?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, right. See, so then what happened was that the process for that is usually you have your GATE and you get shortlisted, then you have your written test, then you have your interview. Okay, that's usually the process. So what basically happened for me was, in the written test, it was like mostly the things which I know, because it was mostly practical things, practical oriented, not the theory related things which you get in mostly GATE, but it is mostly practical related things. These are things which I could write in my sleep because I have gotten used to it, because I was so gotten used to building things with my own hands. So I was like, okay, this is easy. So I think I was in the top 5 after the test. So when I went for the interview, this is where the interesting thing. So when I went for the interview, I still remember this was, I think, the current head of the department for LTL. So he takes a lot of NPTEL courses and whatnot. He was interviewing me. So when I went in with 2 binded documents. So for your BTech thesis, you always try to bind it in a wooden thing and you take it, right? So for me, I had 2. So when I went in for the interview, I placed 2 of these on the table and said, okay, the first question they asked is, why do you have 2? So I said, yeah, I had done 2 BTech theses. I had enough time to do both that. Then they were like, they fell flat right there. So I got the interview right there. Rest of the 20 minutes of interview was just chit chatting. So this is what I try to say, when you are able to show what is it that you have done actually in real life, saying, okay, these are things I'm able to do, and demonstrate that this is what I am able to do. People kind of trust you, saying, okay, you know what is it that you are talking about. That is why you need to have something practically done. You always, don't tell me that you don't have time to do a side project. I once had 7 side projects running, apart from my acad work and whatnot. So do not tell me that you don't have the time. There is always time. And take a project which you are really loving, because unless you have that, see, this will help you get away from Facebook, TikToks, and whatnot. This all your free time gets spent on doing these side projects. That's how you get better. Okay. Okay. So this is something which I want to talk to about taking ownership of whatever is it that you are doing. So it could be, see, let's say you're joining a team, right? So let's say you get assigned a task, or let's say you get uh, let's say your professor is giving you some assignment activity. Okay, now what is it that you do? So as long as somebody might be giving you a task, that is where that should stop. Okay, so once you say yes, okay, hey, I am going to execute this. It could be as simple as you writing an assignment, or it could be as simple as you developing a product. It could be anything, right? As soon as you say yes to whatever it is that this person is giving you, you need to take full ownership and full responsibility of whatever is that you're going to execute. You should not be able to give excuses saying, hey, this is not happening because of XYZ reason. You should say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is really my baby, and this is something which I want. It could be very trivial. It could be something which you're doing for free, or even for $1 million. It doesn't matter. As long as you take ownership and say, hey, I am going to execute this to the best of my ability. As long as I can do that and say, okay, I'm putting my stamp saying this is the best I can do, and the work output will show. You need to, and this is something which I see seriously lacking in the Indian mindset, wherein you never take ownership for something which you always blame, saying, okay, this is not working for XYZ reason. You need to be able to take an ownership saying, okay, I'm going to do this, and whatever needs to be gotten done to be able to execute this, I will take ownership. It is not somebody else's responsibility who has given me the task. His or her role has ended when he or she has given you that job. Okay, your job is saying, okay, I will execute this to the best of my ability. So this is, I need to talk about specifically this. This is killing the chalta hai attitude. So in the Hindi, you have this chalta hai. If you kind of say it in Malayalam, no attitude. This is especially true in Indians, and I kind of don't find it when I deal with foreign clients and foreign engineers, because this is something which is ingrained into us from right from beginning. Like when you are a kid, you say, okay, you do enough to just get by. You should not, you are a brilliant engineer. You are supposed to be a brilliant engineer, and you are supposed to put in your best effort to be able to get something out from this. So whatever is it that you are trying to do, try to be the best at that. Don't have complacency saying, okay, hey, okay, this can work if I am able to get it past a working point. That is not what you should be doing. Kill this. And this is inherently what is stopping India from taking over the world. And say, okay, chalta hai. It kind of is that attitude. Kill that as soon as possible. Yeah. Having that mentality is just a mindset change. You say, oh, okay, hey, I'm doing this task. I need to be able to finish it to the precise nature of what it should be. Second thing, outwork everybody, in the sense that you need to be able to put in enough amount of effort. So you will hear these smart gurus and coming and say, okay, you do smart work over hard work, and what. All those are words. To tell you the truth, all those are just words. So if you are quantifiably able to put in more number of hours than your competitor, than your peer, than your colleague, you will actually get more work done. And there is no substitute for putting in time. Okay, so an actual example is sitting right in front of you guys. I'm not the topper. I was never the topper in college. I was never the topper in school. I was never a topper in anything. See, but the ability which sets me apart from the others is the fact that if two of me is of these similar, let's say there's another guy who's having the same skill set as mine, and if both of us are given the same job and like let's say closed down in a room, I will outwork the other guy. That the other guy will say, I quit first before I do, and I vouch for that, and I actually put in enough amount of time and effort to be able to do that. So if you are able to do that on a daily basis, you will be far ahead of your competition. Say, let's say you are working like 1 hour extra a day over a week. you gain at the end of the week, you will gain like 7 hours, which is close to an actual work day for any employee. So that is what I'm trying to say. Put in your hours, and there is like no shortcuts here. There is absolutely no shortcuts to be rich, successful, nothing. You might find like the oddball who gets lucky and gets $1 million or whatnot, but that is never long term. So if somebody does not appreciate how they got there, they will lose it very fast. So if you put in the time and effort, you do your due diligence and get to the top, you will stay on top for quite some time. And even if you fall down from there, you know the next way to get up there, because you have gone through that cycle once. But these whoever has lucked out and reached the top, they will fall down and they'll be on the bottom section forever. They won't get the luck the second time. So always understand, never take shortcuts with anything which you do in life. I mean, life is a marathon. You need to be able to put consistent amount of work over a period of time, and it takes always a lot of time to be able to do something beautiful. Okay, so to give an example, so this was one of this is what my first company used to do. You can Google it. It's called acpad.com. You can always Google it. This used to be we used to make like music MIDI musical instruments. So this used to be how the product looked like when the project got started. So from this to doing something like this, it took almost 2 years of engineering effort for a team. For like it took countless number of hours to be able to deliver something like this. When people see the final result, they will say, "Wow, you guys did this. How did you guys do it? This is like so cool and whatnot." Right? They say that, but they don't see what went behind the scenes to be able to achieve that. So always understand, to build something beautiful, you need to be able to put in the time and effort to be able to do that. And all of this was done in India. And people will say, when they look at the product and they say, "Hey, how did you guys make this in India?" And they will like, "Okay, is this capability available even in India?" So you go through that phases, right? You always have this notion saying, okay, unless you put in that effort, the result will not come. And consistent effort. There's no shortcuts here. Please remember, no shortcuts. Try to do that. Okay. So 3 down. Let's pick up this page. I think we are running out of kind of time also. Okay, keep an open mind. Okay, this is kind of applicable when people reach a mid stage of their careers, when this is applicable to like mid-scale managers and like senior engineers of whatnot. So when you get to a certain level of expertise, you start dissuading and you start ignoring people, in the sense that hey, whatever this guy is saying does not make, is not worthwhile listening, because I am a field expert sort of a thing. So don't have that ego. So this is like pure ego play. Stop doing that. Keep an open eye. Even if it is a junior engineer, whoever it is, always understand that if somebody is talking, you will get some information from them. What you do with that information is totally up to you, but always understand that you will be getting. So always talk less and listen more. This is like a philosophy I try to do, but people always like to go on blah 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 blah. Don't do that. Say, okay, when you are, let's say, in a meeting, talk the bare minimum. Listen more. What is it that this guy is going to say? So when you talk more, all you're saying is whatever it is that you are knowing, you are trying to put it out there to XYZ person, right? When you listen, you will be getting some information which you do not have had. Okay, so always talk less and listen more. This is a golden rule to live by in interdisciplinary thinking. So this is something which I want you guys to take home, in the sense that you guys are in your college life. You have 4 years of your college. So if when I talk about this in most of the stages, when I ask people that, okay, if let's say you are an electronics engineer, right? So if I ask that electronics engineer, what do you know which is happening in your same batchmate in, let's say, mechanical or in civil or in electrical? What do you know about that? So you, when you are in a college and you have like what, 300, 400 batchmates of in your similar age group, right? Now in that domain, do you kind of coordinate with others in your domain? If you don't understand what is it that those guys are doing. So it always, you remember the T, that You need to be able to always be able to say, okay, hey, I'll be always trying to develop my core skill set via this, but my other skill sets, I'll be always trying to be talking with more people to be able to understand. You need to bring in this interdisciplinary thinking. Why? Because in this day and age, you can't be in silos. You can't be an electronics engineer alone. You can't be a mechanical engineer alone. You can't be a civil engineer. No, it is all intermingled. You are an engineer needs to know the basics in the other domains as well. See, the key element. So people, when they ask me, how do you get about doing that? So if you are in your college life, go and start a collaborative project with somebody in a totally different field. So it could be like a electronics engineer talking with a mechanical engineer to build a product. So now when you work together, you will start to learn things which these guys have learned. So this will help you open up a brand new thought process, which is never heard of. You will be able to say, okay, hey, I am able to connect links which other people in my department is not able to. So that is what is meant by interdisciplinary thinking. This is very important. So, and constantly don't be in your, so I like to say about comfort zones, right? In the sense that, okay, so I like to define a comfort zone as a circle, if you are able to see. It's like a circle, and always people will like to prefer to be on the center of a comfort zone. Wherein this is where my comfort zone is. This is where parents and whatnot and people of all nature, parents, teachers, and whatnot will say, okay, settle down and be in the middle of your comfort zone. Wherein there is nothing else at play, and all you are trying to do is saying, I'm in the middle, I'm happy with my life, and you're stagnant. So that, if you have that mindset, kill that immediately, because that is the root cause of all evil which is going to happen. Your career is going to go downhill from there. When you are in your comfort zone, what I would tell you is, you have your comfort zone. Always be in your comfort zone. That's okay. But always be on the edge. Try to push on the edge of your comfort zone. So how do you go about doing that? Try to do something which is totally uncomfortable on a weekly basis. So let's say you are bad in public speaking. Go over the weekend and say, okay, hey, let me take a class for 5 people on something which I know. Try to better yourself. Try to do something which is uncomfortable on a weekly basis. Then what basically happens is, you have your circle. When you are in the edge, you try to start pushing that edge out. So then you will have a larger circle. Then you will have a larger circle. All of this will help you define who you are. Larger your comfort zone, you can move anywhere in this circle. Better you are as an engineer. That's basically it. Okay. So this is one of our key principles. So I think few of you might know what breaking things into first principles is. So apologies for people who know it. So let me just explain for those of you who don't know what first principles are. First principles basically means that whatever it is you're trying to do, these are like basic science, fundamental axioms, saying, okay, these definitions are principles, do not need any other assumptions, and these are like fundamental, like gravity or whatnot. These are like fundamental phenomena which are available in nature and the sciences. Now if you're able to break things down into its fundamental blocks, you will be able to recreate something from scratch, which is probably not, like, nobody has ever done it before. To give you an example, so let's say you are tasked with, let's take the example of, you want to build, let's say, a phone. Okay, now of that nature, you have like multiple elements. The phone will contain a screen, it has, let's say, Wi-Fi, it has cameras, it has LEDs, it has like speaker modules. There are like a number of things, right? Now let's say you as an engineer is tasked to design, okay, you are tasked at a smaller module, saying, okay, hey, let's build a screen. Okay, so you are tasked at creating a new mobile phone with a screen. Okay, now you need to be able to ask yourself, saying, hey, I am trying to build a screen. Okay, now first question you need to ask is, break it down into its fundamental. You should not be asking what type of screen I should be using. That is technology built on top of a principle. So first question you need to know, what is a screen doing? Okay, a screen is something. Let's say, let's ignore the touch element of it for now. So let's say a screen is something which gives you a visual feedback. Okay, that is my fundamental principle. So anything which gives me a visual feedback can be replaced as a screen. Right now, that is my fundamental principle. Now, a technology, so a visual feedback could be given by, let's say, having an LCD screen, or it could be a TFT screen, it could be a e-ink screen, or it could be multiple other things. Now, when you are able to break things down into its fundamentals, now you say, okay, now I have a my fundamental question is, okay, how do I get a visual feedback to a person who is using a phone? Okay, it could be, now it could be as extreme as you thinking, saying, okay, let's get away with the entire screen. Why should I have a screen? I can just have, basically have, let's say, a Pico projector array, which is beaming a light beam onto my retina. Okay, that is also creating an image on my eye. I am also seeing whatever is there in my phone, but on my eye, right? So that's an extreme case, but you see the beauty of this, right? So when you are able to break things down into its fundamental levels, you will be able to reconstruct back things in a totally unique way, and that is how you do unique innovation. That's what Apple used to do when it launched its first iPhone in 2007. Okay, so when you try to disrupt and you do innovation based on the fundamental principles. So another workaround for this is, so let's say if what most people kind of do these days is, okay, let's say you are tasked at building a phone, they'll go ahead and buy 10 phones, and like from the Oppos, the Samsungs and whatnot, and they'll say, okay, take all the features from these and do some incremental change and put it out as a product. So that is a method called as analogy. So that is okay if you're starting off in your career, but that is not core innovation. So if you need to be able to do core innovation, if you're able to say, stand out and say, okay, do something XYZ, you need to be able to break things down into fundamental principles and say, okay, now this is what I need. Now from this, how do I get about doing the next layers on top of this? So this is an interesting concept to have. It is kind of hard to master. So how do you get about doing that? You start doing things. So let's say I'm taking a phone, right? Whatever is the things which is out there in your, let's say on your table. You say, okay, this is a technology device. How does this thing work? You start asking questions. Then you will find answers. Initially, you might not. Then you start Googling. You start asking people other questions. Then you get to a point where, okay, this guy used this to be able to do this. Okay, now you start asking, okay, can this be done another way? Okay, these are ways by which you try to mitigate. Okay, so even if you have been sleeping all this while, and this is the one slide I want you to take home, and even if you ignore all the others till what I've said till now, this is the key important slide for you. Document, document, document. And this is the rarest of the rare skills which I find in engineers as of today. I've worked with tons of them. The issue with this is people do not write things down. Okay, so I can't tell you enough number of times this has saved my ass, in the sense that I physically go down. So when I'm doing an experiment or doing some sort of development process, I write things down, and it need not be physically writing. It could be you taking notes on a digital notepad or on your email or whatnot, but ensure that it is written down. And it is like time stamped and dated and all that. So why it is important is because, see, you are doing something. Let's say you are working on a side project. Like 2 months down the line, once you have built the project, when you want to come back, you would have totally forgotten saying, okay, why did I use XYZ to do ABC? You would not know. So unless you have written it down on your document saying, oh, yeah, okay, this is why I did that. So this has helped me so much time and effort has been saved, just because I can turn back my pages and say, okay, this is why I did this. So I don't need to repeat that same mistake. So even the mistakes which I do, I kind of write, okay, this thing worked, this thing did not work, this did not work for XYZ reason, right? So unless you document this, and this is a very, very rare skill. So if you are able to master the skill, I'm sure, and if you are an engineering team and there is a good enough engineering manager who sees you doing this, you would not be fired. You would be revered, because this is a very rare skill to have. So I'm not saying by documentation, I don't mean to say you write pages and pages of anything. It could be as concise as writing bullet points saying, okay, this is what is needed. This is step 1, this is step 2, this is step 3. Always write things down. Even if it is a minuscule amount of thing, always write things down. See, now people will ask, how do I develop this skill set? So one thing which I tell you, students are saying, go find your domain, whatever, mechanical, engineering, electronics, whatever. Go find a GitHub project on your domain. There will be a lot of open source projects out there, lot of it. Just Google search for GitHub open source projects on your domain, you will find them. Now, once you have that, go mail the author of the I will not say the author, the creator of the project, say, hey, there seems to be a serious documentation lacking. Can I go ahead and document this entire project for you? Just do it for free. If you do it for like 5 projects, I'm sure you will get good at it. People will start to see and say, okay, hey, this guy can really write stuff. See, the point of a document is saying, now, if I'm a layperson coming and reading your document for the first time, I should be able to understand everything which your project is supposed to do at the end of it. So assume that I'm a layperson, I don't know anything about the thing, but still I'm going to read about this. At the end of the document, I should be knowing everything which I need to know to get executed and get started on this project. That is how a document, that's how concise a documentation should be. So this includes, so you might say, okay, you might not be able to give like go in great detail, but you say, okay, for this documentation, for you to understand this document, the prerequisites are XYZ, and you link down to a few things for these guys to go ahead and read, and then come back and finish the rest of the document. These are elements by which you will be able to put up your documentation. So this is a absolutely key skill, and I rarely see, like probably like 1 in 100 engineers which I interact with probably has good documentation skill. So communication is the key here. So how do you communicate? So how do you concisely write down or communicate whatever is the ideas you have? So when, as I said, when the start of the talk, I wanted to say, okay, when these guys came into me and say, okay, what do you want to talk on? So I wanted to talk about something which is generalized, right? So I wanted to, you need to know who is it that you are going to read your document and write catering to that. So my audience is a generalized student population. That's why I'm speaking about this. Now, if I were to give this presentation to some expert domain professor in some domain, my tone of language and my way of communication will be totally different. We'll be talking in a lot of technical terms, saying that this is, but rest of the information will be redundant for these guys. So know your audience and write down. Communication is very key, and this does not mean that you need to have a command over a language or anything. It is totally okay. The more you learn, more you write, better you will get it. So that's why I'm trying to say, take up any open source project, contribute, saying, okay, hey, can I write down, document these projects for you? One, you will get to learn off the project, then you will learn documentation skills as well. So do that. Okay, so this is something which is like kind of applicable for you as an engineer and you as a human being, right? You need to be able to build trust with people. Now, how do you go about doing this? You go about doing this by doing just helping people, right? By helping, I mean like purely for the pure heartedness, for purely just for the sake of helping, I will help you. Okay, I'm not expecting anything in return. I'm just helping you for the sake of helping. Yeah, I just want to help you get through this because you have some sort of domain knowledge in XYZ. So you want to say that, hey, I want to help you achieve XYZ if it is not taking up too much amount of time. So I'll say actively go out and help people because you genuinely want to do something, not because you are expecting something in return. It is just genuinely because you want to help. So you don't know how this is going to come back to you. See, why I say build this element thing is because see, I get like startups and whatnot calling me on a weekly basis saying, okay, I need help in XYZ. So as long as it's not taking up too much amount of time, I'll say, okay, I'll help you guide you towards whatever it is that you want to do. I'll help them do that. And I don't charge anything of that order. Now, what basically happens with that is I put out so-called good karma out there. So these guys will go out and say to a third party, hey, Amal helped me do XYZ in this. For your next project, why don't you go and reach out to this guy? So I have got larger clients to be able to define things like just be genuinely helpful. Just for the sake of doing this, just be genuinely helpful. So building trust. The process for doing that is being a person of your own. So if you say, okay, you are going to do something, this is my deliverables, you mention that, you stick by it. Come what may, it doesn't matter. You say, okay, this is what I promised you guys. I will deliver on this. Be a man or woman of your word. Be a person of your word. Be consistent, be always on time. Engineers need to be precise. And again, going back to its precise, no chalta hai attitude, nothing. Be consistent. If you constantly be consistent throughout, your growth curve will be exponentially high. And admit it when you're wrong. See, nobody is right always. it takes a big person to say, okay, hey, I know that I did something wrong here, so I apologize and move on. And then you apologize to the person saying, okay, this is something which I won't repeat, but it happened. It takes a big person to be able. Again, this is like not necessarily only into engineering. This helps you become a better human being, basically. Question everything. Okay, this is something which is key in the sense that, see, even if I am saying something, even if let's say Elon Musk is saying, or even if it's Bill Gates, whoever is saying something to you, always take it with a pinch of salt. Okay, so understand where these guys are talking from and what is the point of view by which they are talking. Never trust anybody by what they are saying. Never. Not even me, not even your parents, not even anybody else. So always trust whatever is somebody is saying. So always question them and say, okay, hey, is this person making sense? So remove the notion from your mind, saying there are people who say, okay, hey, you need to believe this because I told you so. Don't take that for an answer. So always question, always question. So in the sense that, okay, so whatever is that, even whatever I'm talking about, you need to go back and say, okay, whatever this guy said, did it make sense to me? Is this worthwhile implementing in my life? And is this applicable in my life? If so, then I would like to do that. Don't be like a blind faith guy saying, okay, whatever this guy says is gospel, I'll go and do that. Don't ever do that. Let it be any person. In this age of misinformation, question everything. Question everything. See, you are given 2 years for this exact reason. You hear input, you process whatever is there in your brain, see, okay, is this applicable to me, not applicable to me, throw it out. If it is not, throw it out. If it is, implement that in your life. That is basically it. Question everything. How do you go about it? Start with your basic questions, the 5 W's and 1 H. Everything which you see, start asking these how, what, where, when, and how, so that you will be able to say, this is what I will be able to achieve at the end of XYZ. Okay, you question everything, and you only trust whatever is that making, whatever is the things which is making sense to you. Okay, this is being a team player. See, you can be a great engineer, but you won't go far unless you have a team, and you need to develop a team. You will have opportunities to play with the team in the sense that get to work alongside a great team. It could be a great team, bad team, it could be anything, but you have to always understand that even if you are a great engineer or whatnot, you need to be a team player. You need to say, okay, you need to take one for the team. A team is always as good as its individuals. There is always an I. So again, this goes back to your ego problem, wherein if you always have an ego saying, hey, I am greater than the team, that should never be the case. The team's needs should always suffice. See, an I is always there, even in the image. An I is always there over here. An I is always here in a team, but it is always hidden, and it needs to be hidden in specifically in any project which you do, right? So your whatever is your needs you have, you put that on a back foot. Always your team's need takes priority. Team building is key. And unless you are a good team player, you won't go far at all. You can be great at something, but you after a period of time, you will just fall off the cliff. Unless you are able to drive a team to be motivated and taking you ahead. Maintain relationship. You need to understand the team consists of many different people from many different backgrounds. You need to be able to maintain relationship with these guys, saying, okay, so you will have fights, you will have professional quarrels, and you might not agree with somebody's viewpoint and all that. That is all okay. That is in the professional realm of things. But maintain personal relationship with them. Say, okay, hey, I don't agree with you on this, but yeah, we are friends or we are work colleagues. Maintain relationship. That is how you will build your network. Okay, building your network is absolutely key in this day and age. So if I were to ask you guys, so in our college you have 400 odd batchmates, right? How many of the people do you know from other batches or other colleges? IEEE helps you develop a great network. So you don't know again where the network is going to come into picture down the line. Always be nice to them and say, okay, hey, if somebody in the network wants some help, offer to help. Build your network. In this day and age, people grow up in the ladder only due to their networks. and due to them, I mean, this was very hard for me upfront because I was an introvert starting out, and then it never used to work out for me. You need to be physically going ahead to meet people and all that. It is hard, but you need to be able to put in the effort to be able to build your network and teach others, right? See, even in your team, right? Even let's say your colleagues or whatnot, nobody knows everything. You might know XYZ of ABC, but that does not mean that somebody else doesn't know something else. So learn as well as teach. I mean, go ahead and say, okay, hey, this is something which I learned. I want to share it with you guys. It might be of use. Some people might find value with it. Some people might not. That is okay. But always try to teach. You are a teacher, and even if you're a student, right? You are a teacher, and you just that it is just that you don't know it. You have information with you which probably nobody else on this planet has. Are you able to disseminate that information to the correct person so that it helps someone? Just do that. In this day and age, it is very easy. You write a blog about it, you tweet about it, you write about it on Facebook. You write. There is n number of possibilities by which you can spread your information. Be valuable, add value to people. So then people will say, okay, hey, this guy knows what he or she is talking about, right? So that is how you kind of be a good team player. So this is my last one. I'll try to wrap up soon. Don't be scared to fail. And this is built into the psyche of, again, this is purely Indian mindset, I would say, because you have been taught from kindergarten to school to college saying, okay, failure is bad. Because the only failure which people know is academic failures back then when you are a student, right? So you are always failure is like injected into your brain saying, okay, hey, you should never be doing that. So if you are, don't ever be scared to fail. Fail more. I would say fail as much as you can. Early on, you are in your early 20s. This is the perfect time to try out new things and fail. And fail things on a massive scale. Okay, make as many mistakes as you can. And now the issue is when you make mistakes, you will say, okay, hey, now next time when you are going in that path, you will say, okay, I have learned from that, right? Now I am sure that I won't be able to see. The only difference between, let's say, a master and a novice is master would have made more mistakes than the novice would even have tried. Okay, so make many mistakes. There's this beautiful saying by, I think it was Seth Godin, who said, the person who fails most wins. See, if you fail, eventually you are going to win. See, people will probably laugh at your failure. Let them, and don't care anything about them. Let them laugh at you. But understand that if you are learning something from that, you will be winning down the line. Again, life is not a sprint, it is a marathon. Down the line, you will definitely win. Make as many mistakes, move fast. And in the sense, don't say, okay, hey, this thing I tried, it failed. Okay, let's not worry about it too much. Okay, move fast. Okay, get on to the next thing. Okay, I tried this did not work. Move on to the next iteration in the list. Don't be scared to fail. So how I set my standards is saying, okay, you try to do it on a weekly schedule or a monthly schedule, depending on how is it that you want to. Are you a better self than yourself than you were last week? On the start of the week, you say, okay, this is what I am as of today. At the end of the week, let's say Sunday night, just have a recollection saying, what did I do in the week? Did I make myself better or worse from last week? So if the answer to that question is, I am static for like 2 to 3 weeks, it is high time that you change something. So that means that you are not pushing yourself to the extreme limits. You are not learning something new. You are not exploring something new things. So are you a better version of yourself than 1 week from your previous week? So if you are able to constantly say for a few weeks, hey, I learned X, Y, Z. So that is progress. That is how you do. That is how you quantifiably do measure progress. See, if you do all of this thing, yeah. So this is what I want to conclude with, and we are almost out of time. This is just as a recap. If you guys wanted to take screenshots or whatnot, feel free to. This is what I want. This is in no means an exhaustive list. Okay, these are things which I think is essential to becoming a great engineer in this domain. So if you follow, as I'm saying, right, in the sense that there might be a few things which you might not agree with. That is totally okay. But whatever are things which you kind of like and liked from the talk, start implementing that in your real. Does nobody any good if you have just spent like what if you have been around for like 1 hour now, right? You have spent 1 hour of your time, and it will be just purely a waste of your time if you don't put these into actionable items at the end of the day. You will say, okay, hey, I heard a decent guy coming in and speaking about something, and he left. That is doing me disservice, and you have just wasted 1 hour of your time. Put actionable points saying, okay, what is it that what are my takeaways from this talk, whatever are the things I need to implement in real life. These are the things I'm going to be able to do. These are the things I'm actually going to make that into actionable items. Okay, so these are the things. I mean, you guys can feel free to take screener. This was just put up so that it just gives you a concise summary of what I was talking about. So I want to see all of this would not make sense unless you start having fun. Okay, have fun. Whatever is it that you are doing, life is too short to have regrets, right? So as long as you are having fun, whatever is that you're worthwhile doing. So if you hate a job, quit, start doing something which you love. Always. It could be, you might be in your early 20s, you can be in your early 30s, you can be in your 50s. It doesn't matter. If you are loving what you're doing, continue doing that. So it should not be at your when you're 70 years old and you are in your deathbed and you start having rickets. That is not the time to have. I mean, do mistakes, do whatever is it that you like, such that you live a full life. Being an engineer is like a part of that. Okay, have fun, please have fun. The entire experience is just good only if you will have fun. Okay, okay, one slide which, okay, so this is to explain this slide. I need to go back a bit. In the sense, this is a constant slide because I get a lot of questions from people asking, hey Amal, why don't you take up corporate jobs? Why don't you go to Silicon Valley? Why don't you go to XYZ, ABC and whatnot? So people have different opinions on what I do. See, I want to explain that too, so that this slide always remains same to me over the course of whatever is talks I've given. Okay, this slide kind of defines who I am and what are the things why I do what I do. Okay, so for me, this is the passion for whatever is the activity which I do. It could be projects, it could be client work, or whatever is that I'm doing. I'm passionate for what I'm doing. There isn't anything else which anybody can offer me which can give me more pleasure than this. See, I've been in this industry for like probably 6 years now since I've graduated. In like at my college also I was doing something else, but in that time, not even a single day I felt that I am doing work. It is always I'm waking up saying, okay, there is a new problem, there is a new challenge. There are ups and downs. I sometimes hate my life saying, okay, hey, this is something which I need to get through. But I don't. There wasn't a case wherein I would say, okay, this is work for me. This is laborious work. No, I enjoy what I do. That is where you need to be in a professional life to be successful in anything. Even if you're an engineer, designer, anything else, you need to be able to say that, hey, I'm happy to go to work, or I'm happy to do whatever is that. So I don't have fixed working hours or anything. I'm always on. Apart from the time that I'm goofing around doing something for fun, I'm always at work. Saying because that's my hobby sort of thing. See, I want to do this, and why I give these talks to students and whatnot is I want to be able to put India on the hardware tech industry. See, when I used to start these like 2 to 3 years back, there hardly used to be any hardware startups or anything or any tech related good startups in this domain. Now there are starting to be quite a good startup culture which is especially in the hardware tech and the technology phase, in the innovation phase, which is very great to hear. Okay, so I want you guys to be also able to say, okay, hey, am I bettering India for what from whatever is it that I'm learning? I need to be able to do that. See, this is a core theme for me. I'm talking to you guys especially because of this. I want you guys to be a new breed of engineers who love engineering for what it is, not for degrees, not for writing exams, or not for passing anything. You need to love what is it that you're doing. Okay, unless you love that, I want engineers to love what they're doing. if I'm able to help somebody be able to do that, that for my whole life purpose is done. Basically, create an ecosystem where, see, not everybody can do startups or whatnot, and it is kind of risky and whatnot. There are enough issues with it. But if you are on your path to be an engineer, you will be able to see and spot things which you will be able to contribute to. It could be in your local surrounding, it could be something to do with waste management, it could be you use your brains to be able to solve a problem. It might not make business sense for you, you might be doing it just for helping some other person. So bringing that thought process and that ecosystem is very critical in this domain. So I want to end by saying this: we actually need to be making, from the physical make in India, you need to be actually making things with a focus on innovate in India. So if you are able to innovate and build things for the world, and you guys are young, right, 20, 25 age group, right? If you guys take up the stand that, okay, I'll be able to do something which is groundbreaking right here sitting from India, you don't need to go to Silicon Valley, Europe or whatnot. You will be able to do it sitting in Kerala, PNG. Okay, you will be able to do that from sitting from where you are. Okay, so always keep that in mind. Okay, that's it. Yeah, any questions? I will feel free to, okay, this is my, okay, give you a brief, you guys can feel free to reach out to me on any of the social medias or whatnot. I might not respond to you immediately, but I will definitely respond. I always respond to whoever pings me. So always, so these blogs and whatnot are what I write about tech and whatnot. So yeah, feel free to connect me with all those. See, why I tell you guys this email ID is because when I ask people any questions, most of them will say no questions. Because I used to be one among in the crowd once saying, okay, when somebody asks any questions, I would just shy away and say, okay, no questions. So I kind of like was an introvert. So I would write back to the author or the speaker after the session saying, okay, this is some query I had. I didn't want to ask in front of a crowd. But to answer that, it took a lot of mindset change from my side to be able to change that. So this came from one movie of mine. So all it takes for all the introverts and who has trouble greeting with people, all it takes is 20 seconds of insane courage. And this is from, I think it was like a movie called as We Met at Zoo or something of that. Or so all it takes for you is 20 seconds of insane courage to do something. See, if you have that 20 seconds of insane courage, I'm sure something great will come out of it. So it might be saying you want to ask a question, or it might be you walking up to, you saw somebody like your role model or something, and you are hesitant to go up and talk to. Just take that 20 seconds and say, okay, I'm going to do it. So if you do that, you will achieve great things in life, and just your inertia will go off basically. Okay, yeah, feel free to reach out to me on any of these social media platforms. Yeah, any questions? So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask, or yeah, if Abhijit is there, so if there is any questions from the chat you want to put out, I'll be happy to answer.
So actually, we have some questions coming in the chat box.
Yeah, please do ask.
Should I read it out, sir?
Yeah, okay, please do. Pick one and maybe.
The first question was, being an electronics engineering graduate, what are the things they must do other than academics in college for getting into an electronics industry?
To be on the electronics industry, see, learn tools. I mean, see, that's what the entire essence of the talk is. You start with projects, right? In the sense that you take up any project of your liking. It could be, again, it could be any small project. You take up a project and you say, okay, I'll execute it end to end. You take up saying, okay, hey, this is a small domain which I want to work with. Execute. It could be as simple as a home automation project or something of that order. It could be small, and then start building up. See, don't be complacent in the sense that, okay, I've built this and that's all I need to be able. Always have multiple things in your pipeline. Now, always keep innovating and keep improving on that. And share in the sense that, see, whatever is that you're doing, it won't be that groundbreaking upfront. Okay, so feel free to open source the project or something. Get collaborative inputs from others as well. The people will be saying, okay, hey, can I adopt this project for some project which I'm doing? Do a collaborative project. make sure your work stands out and make sure you put in enough effort to be able to say, hey, these are the things which I'm putting out there. Help in getting feedback also. It kind of helps you get good amount of feedback saying, hey, this is something which I built. Can you help me debug this? Or say, okay, what are the bad things about it? How is that I can improve? All of the things are kind of will help you get there if you are putting your work out there in the public, and it will help you definitely in your, if you're interested in job cycle and whatnot, if you're able to show them to a git page or whatnot and show actual hardware prototype or video which you're saying, okay, this is something which I've built. I'm sure nobody is doing that currently in your present job market. You will actually stand out. Okay, that's how you will be able to do projects, do more projects, and learn your fundamentals. Your first year, 4 years of your BTech is to solidify your fundamentals. Do that, and the rest of it you will start learning when you're in the practical domain. Yeah, that's basically it. Any other?
Okay, sir. Gautam, he's having an interesting question. What should we fix? Academics or
Sir, there's a question.
Yeah, Vijay, go ahead.
yeah, what should we prioritize? Academics or industrial exposure during our maybe in college days?
Exposure, yeah. Please, exposure. No question about that. ACADS makes sense for you to get your first. I mean, even if you are an average student, it is okay. If you have I'm not saying flunk your ACADS or whatnot. I'm not saying that. Put enough time on your ACADS, because that helps you in getting your first foot through. Because people, especially in India, kind of take ACADS as the first cutoff point. So do that, in the sense that even if you are an average student, that is totally okay. Exposure to industry, take up industrial projects, take up if you can be a free intern to a company or whatnot, go do that. You need to have industrial exposure, or you need to be doing projects. More projects you do, more things you learn, and you are actually able to say, okay, this is what I am able to achieve. And in marks, and you can say, okay, I scored 90%, I scored 95%. You can say a number of things, but beyond a point, it doesn't make sense unless you can actually demonstrate that whatever it is that you have learned in ACADS, you can actually show it in real life. Okay, so do exposure. Exposure is absolutely essential. Teach, put your work out there. Simple. See, let people laugh, do whatever it is that they want to do. You don't care. As long as you're putting things out, it makes for people who have their ideas sorted out, know that, okay, hey, this person is doing XYZ, and I can actually see that. This is not something which they are bringing from somewhere else. You can actually see that. Okay, so exposure, always more. ACADS, I'm not saying take a backseat and you need to flunk on your courses or whatnot. Make sure your ACADS are steady, but focus on projects and building stuff and putting things out there. Yeah.
Okay, sir. The is asking, after the 4 years of engineering studies, when we appear in front of an interviewer, what matters is that our grade or the skills that we have, and how to be an out-of-the-box thinker.
Right. See, grades. See, if any company is shortlisting you and putting you, selecting you based on your grades, stop joining that company. That guy doesn't know anything what he's talking about. Understand that projects and what is it that you do defines who you are. Okay, understand that. Clear the skill set which you acquire in your 4 years of your college is what is going to make or break you. See, I'm not saying that I didn't learn anything from college. Whatever is it that I've learned in college, if I was not able to apply that in after my 4 p.m. classes in my home and in my labs and whatnot, I would not be sitting and talking with you guys right now. I'll be working in some corporate job somewhere, doing some coding level somewhere, right? Your skill set is defined always by saying, okay, how many skill set can you actually say? Okay, if I were to give you a task, will you be able to do that task? That shows you, okay, for an actual good recruiter, they should be able to say, okay, look at your resume and say, okay, this is project X you have done. Saying this is a quantifiable thing you are able to do. You quantitate by numbers. Okay, I took, let's say, I took an open source project from the internet and I improved the efficiency by 5%, 10%, and you are able to quantifiably define numbers. If you are able to do that, that says that you know what is it that you are talking about. Okay, that actually shows. Always ACADS makes sense to a point. But if some company is putting ACADS over whatever is the skill set you have, don't go join. You will regret doing that 1 year from joining. Definitely sure. Okay, how do we become a out-of-the-box thinker? Think, I mean, question everything and anything. Whatever, I mean, you start with the basics. See, whatever is, look around you, right? Whatever is the thing which you get in your hand. So it could be a phone, it could be anything else. Take that and say, okay, why is this thing like this? Why is this thing like that? When you start questioning, you might not have the answers. I understand that you are early on in your career, you might not have all the answers. Nobody does, but you will start to find out answers to that. Okay, why is the phone like this? Why was, let's say, a flip design? Why did the flip design evolve to something like this? So there are n number of things which will come into the picture. So how do you become out of box in this? You start by asking questions. Start doing that, then you will start to make connections which you would have never thought of before. So that's how you go about doing that. I think Vijay asked placements versus opportunities in your open world. Vijay, do you mean like startups of that nature?
Yeah, so basically, again, actually the biggest dilemma that I had. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you speak up? It's very low.
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello. Yeah. So basically, again, when I was graduating college, I think the biggest decision that I had made was not sitting for placement.
Right.
And I know what a sort of tough decision that was, and trying to explain that to people was, I mean, I didn't understand it myself.
Right.
I mean, now looking back, it was good, but I mean, most of the students here probably are facing the same thing. I mean, placements is sort of one of the reasons why they would have gotten into college in the first place.
Right.
And the fear of, not doing things apart from placements. I mean, if you're studying and doing things just so that you are eligible for placements is one thing, but if you want to be a damn good engineer,
right,
you'd probably be, better off elsewhere. And I think that elsewhere is something that most people aren't aware of. So I just wanted to know what your take is when it comes down to, once you do what you said to do, to be a damn good engineer,
right,
are placements even relevant, important versus, opportunities in the real world?
See, for those of you who do not know, Vijay is a great engineer. Just go. He has his own company and whatnot. Just Google up Fractal Works, right? Fractal Works, yeah. Just Google up.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah. So Google up, great engineer, great teams and whatnot. So great guys. See, this question always comes. Even I had when I was doing in IITB, should I do startup versus should I go for placement? I kind of did both, because just for the sake of saying, okay, shutting off people, because I didn't know anything better. So if I were given an option right now, I would have never done that. But when I was in that spot, there was so much peer pressure saying, okay, your friends get placed in XYZ, Intel, the big shot, the Apples and whatnot. And then you have severe peer pressure saying, hey, your family and whatnot, hey, why don't you have a job? Why don't you do XYZ? Why are you not? See, this is the problem with parents and teachers and whatnot. They say, okay, they want their they want their kids to stand out, but also comply. These are two opposite things. They want to follow the herd, but also I want my student to be like the exceptional person. So you don't be exceptional unless you try do something totally out of the box, right? So this is always the case. For me, it was always the case that, okay, hey, when I do XYZ, so I sat for the places for the sake of shutting people off, saying, okay, I got the job and whatnot. And then in the end, I said, rejecting the placement job, whatever I got, and went on to do my own startup. right? So this always becomes a problem for you. So I say, okay, so startup is not meant for everybody. So to give you a fair assessment, this is startup is only meant for people who are able to take hits on a daily basis. Startups is like lot of every day of your living memory. You will find that okay, you will have ups, you will have downs and whatnot. So you will have, unless you are able to manage all of the things, startup is not a way for you to go ahead. So it is always there. So for you, if you want to do placements versus open opportunities outside, feel free to. Nobody is stopping you from applying to other companies. You say, okay, so let's say you went into placement and say, okay, hey, I did XYZ and you got hired in some XYZ company. Let's assume that's a company which you don't want to potentially go and join, right? You are free to explore your options. There are enough technology companies which are starting about in India and abroad who can take you. So if you are really good, so even if in the COVID job market or whatnot, people say jobs are going down. Yes, but people with skills will find jobs. As long as you have a skill, you will find a job. Understand that. And the jobs which are going are the jobs which are repeat. So if understand this, if your job can be written down in steps and anybody can do it, you will be replaced either by a cheaper employee or like outsourced to somebody else, or eventually by AI and whatnot. So unless you are able to innovate and think out of the box and bring something to the team and to the company, you will never be able to sustain yourself long in any job. So understand that. So open opportunities, there are quite a lot of them out there. So do not just face yourself in the fact that, okay, this is the only opportunities you have. No, tons and tons. Just keep an open mind. And you are just beginning your career. Don't be put under peer pressure, parents, teachers saying, okay, you don't have a job, XYZ. No, as long as you are sticking to your path and say, okay, I'm doing this is what is making sense to me. If that is true to your nature, go ahead and do that. Okay, simple as that. Okay, yeah, if there are any other questions,
Hello, sir.
MBA, see, MBA, it's good. I mean, in the sense, if you want to do a degree, see, I was offered, I mean, so I did my BTech and then I want to do, why I want to do masters was I want to study in an IIT. Point being, I want to know what it takes to be in a top premier institute to see what after studying there, I understood it is not nothing has changed in my college as well as in IIT. You have a better group of people in a collaborative environment. That's basically it. You will have a larger network of peers, right? So in that aspect, is a degree important? In this, degree will stop being relevant in like 10 years from now, I would say. MBA is good if you want to do some sort of like specific things where people ask for an MBA, yes. But how I would say, okay, how you do a best MBA is go do a startup. One, if you run a startup, and if you are able to manage everything and you are able to make sure that your financials are met and you stay afloat for a few years, that will give you more information than any MBA courses which is out there. Okay, real life experience over degrees. That's, and I had like PhD options to do up here. I said no to that, saying, okay, I don't want to waste my next 5 years of my time chasing a degree. I can very well do whatever it is that I'm doing in a PhD outside and doing whatnot and at my own pace. It is just that I don't have a degree to show for it, and I don't want to show that. See, people should know me by what is it that I'm doing, not with my educational skill set or what I am about. That makes me, but that should not be what should be defining me. So go take an MBA if you are really passionate about doing something in finance or not. You will get to know quite a lot of things in an MBA. I'm not saying it is a total waste of time, but take a call. Say, do you want to spend 2 years doing this versus something else? That's what I would say. Okay, so any other questions? Okay, I think not. Okay, so yeah, if there are any other questions, feel free to ping. Totally open. Just drop me a mail, connect me via whatever is the social media platform. But understand, take home. The only thing which I guys want you to take home is please implement few things which you think is important from this. Not if all the things might be important to you, but at least a couple of things you will find useful. Please make sure that you start implementing it. You are young, you are on a career path, so make sure you get into a good groove based on this. Okay. So yeah,
Hello, sir.
that's it from my side. So if anything else, Abhijit?
Sir, hello, sir. I have a question for you. Am I audible?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's the last question today. So the session taken was somewhat truly a revelation for me, sir. I shall definitely try to imbibe these things in my life. Thank you for that. My question is, during the times of pandemic now, online classes have been actually proving very stressful for us since we don't get to have the same amount of interaction that we used to get earlier in our real classrooms. So
Right.
many of the students have found different unique ways to tackle this issue. So I just wanted to know what's your take on this problem faced by students.
We see, so there are two halves to this. So see, what the good thing about this, what pandemic made you do is, see, you are cutting down on a lot of unnecessary travel and whatnot, and you are saving a lot of time on commute to college and commute to work and whatnot. If you are able to get things done in your sitting at your home with your laptop, nothing like it. Okay, so I understand the fact that there is a collaborative environment which is lost, and there is a group work and whatnot which is not happening. So if you are able to balance these things, right? See, why I say online education is here to stay, even with COVID and whatnot. Eventually, whatever is the information you want to learn as of now, you can find it online. It is not somebody's like personal collection or anything of that order. Go into Coursera, there are enough free courses. Go into YouTube, there is enough information. Whatever is it that you want, any domain, be it any domain, you are able to learn whatever is it, that domain, you will be able to learn from your online classes. Okay, so point. So I get that, okay, so some of you won't be able to meet, collaborate, and there is a collaborative environment which is being lost. Apart from that, you should be making use of this extra time. Say, let's say you have classes from 10 to 4. After that, you are not wasting your time on anything else. Go do whatever it is that you want to do. Feel free to explore other things. See, this opens up a lot of opportunities for you because you get a lot more time from when you were, let's say, going to college and loafing about. I'm not saying that is not needed. That is an integral part of how you become a good person, a good overall human being. I'm not saying you don't need to have that, but now that that is not there, you utilize that by doing something else. So make sure that you use your online time to be able to say, okay, hey, I am able to do XYZ. So let me go ahead and do some other project in my. If you're able to do that, you will be able to achieve far more greater success in your 4 years worth of engineering life. Because online engineering, I understand that teachers would not be able to tell you things on a face-to-face manner, but there are ways around that. So as long as you put in the time and effort, yeah, there are ways around mitigating the current flaws in the current thing. But understand, COVID is not going to go away, and there are a few projects which I've taken up, which actually showcase whatever is the data which government puts out and whatnot. It is here to stay and will be here for at least for the next 6 to 8 months. Take care of that and be mindful. You guys would be totally safe. Probably like 1 in 100 of you might get, even if you are infected, might get some severity. But people at your home who has comorbidities and all that. So there is like studies which I am a part of, which I can say there are people who where the death rate is close to like 25%, which is 1 in every 4 person affected by the disease is dying. So COVID is here to stay. So keep mindful of that, work around that. So eventually going on, like even if COVID goes away, eventually online classes and studies is here to stay. And eventually I assume like 10, 20 years from now, you won't have the concept of these colleges. Colleges will be like meeting places for you to like sort of like clubs for you to join together to build something or to have a collaborative, like something like a Fab Lab sort of thing. That's how 20 years from now I imagine education to be. Everything will be online by then, because to learn anything under the sun just by Googling. Just by Googling. There are enough free courses. If you don't get anything in, you pay some amount of money to get a paid course to be able to. But there are enough free things out there to be able to get you started on from you becoming a newbie to a expert. Okay, so that's what I would want to tell about the online classes and COVID. Okay,
Exactly. I agree with you.
hope I
Thank you, sir.
answered your question, but yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes. I found it very useful. Thank you, sir.
Okay, cool. Okay, any other queries? Okay. Seems-
I think there is
Yeah.
no other questions. So, thank you, sir. It was a really nice presentation. So, I asked Abhijit to say something on behalf of all of us.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks a lot for, I mean, it's been like, I think it's more than 1.5 hours now. Thanks a lot for sticking around. It was really great interacting with you guys. Hopefully, you guys were able to take away some things, good things from this talk. So, yeah, feel free to be in touch if you
First of
want
all,
to put out some ideas. Feel free to do that. Thanks. Okay, yeah. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I thank you for taking a busy schedule, taking a part of your schedule to give us a nice, inspiring talk on the most relevant topic for an engineer, how to be a good engineer, for as part of our IEEE anniversary celebrations. And I'm definitely that most of us would be inspired on our new vision on inspiring young engineers and put India on the hardware tech industry. Most of the things you told were highly relatable to us, and we were actually thinking about those days. And thank each and everyone present here and actually participating in the talk and being patient. And thank you from as part personally and as part of IEEE CBS.
Thanks, Abhi. Thanks a lot, guys. Yeah, feel free to keep in touch. Yeah, via the social media or whatnot. If you buy my personal number, yeah, ask Abhijit or whatever, or just ping me on social media. I should be able to. Because I think this is getting recorded, that's why I add my number there. Okay, thanks a lot, guys. Bye. Take care. Have a great weekend.